Welcome to Dreamonia, the channel where we explore the deepest mysteries of human history, evolution, and survival. In today's video, we uncover the story of the worst time to be human, 930,000 years ago when only 1,000 people survived. Discover how our ancestors endured, adapted, and left lessons that still shape us today. The story I want to share today takes us back nearly 1,000,000 years. A time when humanity faced one of the most challenging periods in our existence. Around 930,000 years ago, the human population experienced a collapse so severe that only about 1,000 people survived. This is not a story about numbers or science alone. It's a story about resilience, survival, and the ability of humans to endure even the darkest periods. Chapter 1. Understand how human population collapsed 93,000 years ago. Imagine a world very different from ours. No cities, no machines, no written language. Life was raw and unpredictable. Humans depended entirely on nature for survival. Food was scarce. Water was not guaranteed. The climate shifted constantly, sometimes freezing cold, sometimes unbearably hot. The environment could be unforgiving. Disease, predators, and accidents were constant threats. Every day was a challenge to live another day. Scientists have studied this period carefully. They call it a population bottleneck. It is a moment in history where the human population shrank drastically, leaving only a tiny group to carry the species forward. To think that nearly an entire species could be reduced to just 1,000 individuals is staggering. The thought alone can shake your perspective on how fragile life is and how precious it is to be alive today. This collapse did not happen overnight. It was a slow process, caused by a combination of factors. Climate change played a major role. The Earth went through extreme fluctuations. Glaciers advanced, then receded. Food sources disappeared in some areas and appeared in others unpredictably. Humans had to constantly move, searching for safety, shelter, and nourishment. Any misstep could be fatal. But what does this mean for us today? Why should we think about a time when only 1,000 humans survived nearly 1,000,000 years ago? Because it shows that humans are capable of extreme resilience. It shows that no matter how hopeless things might feel, survival is possible with focus, adaptation, and cooperation. This is not a story of despair. It is a story of quiet strength. Disease was another silent enemy. Without medicine or understanding of germs, even a small infection could wipe out many. Injuries could become deadly. The average human life during this period was fragile and uncertain. Every individual mattered because the population was so small. The survival of the species depended on each person's ability to adapt, to find food, to avoid danger, and to keep others alive. These early humans had to make choices that mattered for survival. They needed to move, to hunt, to find water. Every action counted. They could not afford to waste energy on things that did not contribute to their survival. Every step, every decision, every effort was meaningful. And today, we can carry the same mindset into our lives. Every action we take matters. Every choice has a consequence. And even when life feels difficult, when circumstances seem impossible, we can still take steps forward. The tools they had were simple but essential. Stones, sticks, fire. Each was a lifeline. Mastery of even basic tools made the difference between life and death. Skills mattered. Knowledge mattered. The ability to adapt, to observe, to learn quickly was critical. Today we have far more resources than they did, yet many of us waste opportunities to learn, to grow, and to prepare ourselves for challenges. These humans show us the value of persistence and the importance of learning constantly. Consider how isolated those humans must have felt. With only 1,000 of them scattered across the planet, communities were small. The bonds they formed with one another were essential. Cooperation and trust were not optional. They were survival tools. Humans learned to protect each other, to share resources, and to depend on one another. Even in extreme scarcity, there was a need for connection. Today, we might take relationships, teamwork, and support for granted. But these early humans remind us that no one survives alone. Connection is part of what keeps us alive, physically and emotionally. It is important to understand that survival was not guaranteed. Most humans did not make it through this period. Only a small group endured. And yet, from this group, humanity continued. Life persisted. Civilization would rise thousands of years later, but it was rooted in the strength and determination of these survivors. This is a reminder that even when the odds seem impossible, resilience can change the course of history. We can draw lessons from this extraordinary period. First, resilience is a choice. Difficult times are inevitable, but the decision to keep going, to continue learning, to adapt, and to rely on community is what allows survival. Second, every action matters. Small steps repeated consistently can preserve life, build strength, and create possibilities. Third, connection and cooperation are essential. Even the strongest person cannot survive alone. Fourth, learning and skill building are life-saving tools. Knowledge, applied wisely, is power. Thinking about only 1,000 humans surviving from nearly 1,000,000 years ago should shift our perspective. We live in a time of abundance, yet many of us feel unprepared, overwhelmed, or fearful. If these humans could endure constant danger and scarcity, if they could carry humanity through a bottleneck, we can endure challenges in our lives today. We can adapt, we can learn, we can pursue. Life may feel difficult, but the capacity to survive and thrive exists within us, just as it did for them. We often think of survival as something physical, like finding food or water, but there is a mental and emotional survival too. These humans endured fear, uncertainty, and loss. They faced moments where continuing seemed impossible. Yet they found ways to keep moving forward. They endured because survival demanded courage, focus, and adaptability. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action in spite of fear. Adaptation is not just reacting. It is preparing and learning continuously. Take a moment to reflect on what it means to live in the present. The struggles we face today may feel insurmountable, but they are often easier than what humans faced nearly 1,000,000 years ago. We have resources, knowledge, and communities that early humans could only dream of. And yet, we must cultivate resilience. We must develop strength. We must act deliberately. Survival and success are not accidents. They are the result of effort, courage, and learning from challenges. This story is also a call to awareness. Life is fragile, and time is precious. We should not waste opportunities or ignore what matters. Just as those early humans acted purposefully every day to survive, we must act purposefully to live fully, to grow, and to contribute. Each day is an opportunity to strengthen ourselves, to support others, and to prepare for whatever comes next. Resilience is not built in comfort, it is built in the face of challenge. Finally, remember that survival is not just about existing. It is about endurance, growth, and progress. The humans who survived 980,000 years ago did more than live. They carried the potential of humanity forward. They remind us that we are capable of extraordinary endurance, that even in the worst conditions, humans can find a way, and that every challenge we face is not a limit, but a chance to build strength, wisdom, and perseverance. The story of 1,000 humans surviving 30,000 years ago is more than history. It is a lesson in courage, resilience, and the potential within every human being. It is a reminder that no matter how dark the times, there is always a path forward. Every action matters. Every moment matters. Every choice matters. And by embracing resilience, learning, and connection, we can face any challenge, grow through it, and create a meaningful life that honors the strength of those who came before us. Chapter 2. Explore reasons only 1,000 humans survived globally. As you move through your own life, carry this story with you. Know that resilience is possible, even when circumstances seem impossible. Recognize that your choices, your actions, and your ability to learn and adapt are your most valuable tools. And remember that connection, courage, and persistence have been the foundations of humanity since the beginning. You are alive today, not by accident, but because humanity has endured the hardest times. Let that inspire you to face your challenges, grow stronger, and live fully. In the last chapter, we saw how humanity faced an extraordinary survival challenge nearly 1 million years ago. Only a small fraction of humans endured this harsh time. Today, we focus on understanding why only 1,000 humans survived globally. This is not just a story about numbers. It is a story about adaptation, choices, and the incredible resilience of early humans. It shows us what is required to endure in the harshest conditions and reminds us of the strength humans can summon in critical moments. The first factor was the environment. The planet was in a state of constant change. Ice ages alternated with periods of heat. Forests and grasslands expanded and contracted unpredictably. Resources that humans relied on, water, food, and shelter, became unstable. Some areas that once provided abundant food became deserts or frozen wastelands. Humans who could not adapt to these changes faced death. Only those who learned to read the signs of nature, who could move when conditions became hostile, could survive. This teaches us that observation and adaptability are crucial to survival, even today. Food scarcity played a decisive role. Hunting and gathering were the only ways to eat. If animals migrated or plants failed to grow, survival became difficult. Small mistakes could be deadly. Early humans had to track animals, understand seasonal patterns, and locate edible plants. They could not rely on stored supplies or modern tools. Only groups that had knowledge, experience, and cooperation managed to secure enough food. This shows us the power of preparation and learning. In our lives, preparation and knowledge remain critical. Success and survival require awareness and skill. Geography also mattered. Humans who survived were often those in regions that provided both food and shelter, and where movement was possible if conditions became dangerous. Isolation could be deadly. Communities needed access to water and resources while avoiding extreme weather or predators. Humans who could relocate and exploit multiple environments had higher chances of survival. This shows that flexibility and adaptability are critical. Life is rarely static, and survival often depends on our willingness to move and adjust. Climate alone was not the only factor. Disease also had a significant impact. Without medicine or understanding of germs, even minor infections could be fatal. Epidemics could wipe out entire communities. A small population becomes especially vulnerable because each loss has a larger impact on the species as a whole. Human resilience, therefore, depended on health, sanitation, and the ability to recover from illness. Today, this reminds us to value our health and take actions to maintain it. Without a healthy body and mind, even the strongest plans can fail. Another crucial reason for survival was cooperation. Humans who survived did not do it alone. Small groups depended on one another. Sharing food, knowledge, and protection was essential. Trust within these groups allowed them to act as one. A weak or disconnected group often failed. Humans are social creatures, and cooperation has always been a survival tool. Even today, building trust, teamwork, and connection can determine success in personal and professional life. Isolation reduces resilience, while cooperation strengthens it. Survival in extreme conditions requires more than strength or luck. Around 930,000 years ago, humans faced one of the most difficult periods in history. only a small fraction survived. To endure such harsh conditions, early humans had to develop strategies that combined skill, knowledge, and cooperation. Understanding these survival strategies gives insight not only into human history, but also into resilience, problem solving, and determination that remain relevant today. Chapter 6. Identify survival strategies humans use to endure harsh conditions. The first critical strategy was cooperation. Individuals could not survive alone. Small groups depended on each member for food, protection, and knowledge. Sharing resources, working together to hunt and gathering plants sufficiently were essential for survival. Trust and collaboration determined whether a group could endure. Groups that failed to cooperate often did not survive. Cooperation was not optional. It was a necessity, and it was the foundation of human survival during extreme conditions. Resource management was another key strategy. Food and water were scarce, and every resource had to be used wisely. Early humans learned to ration supplies, prioritize critical needs, and use every part of what they gathered or hunted. Waste could mean death. Groups that managed resources carefully were able to survive periods of scarcity. Resource management required planning, observation, and discipline. It was a daily practice that ensured long-term survival, highlighting the importance of thoughtful and strategic action in any challenging situation. Innovation was a defining survival strategy. Early humans developed tools to hunt, gather, and protect themselves more effectively. Stones, sticks, and fire were used in creative ways to increase efficiency. Innovation also included finding new ways to store food or improve shelter. Groups that experimented, learned from mistakes, and refined their techniques were better equipped to handle extreme conditions. Adaptation through innovation allowed humans to overcome obstacles that seemed insurmountable, proving that resourcefulness is critical to survival. Observation and knowledge of the environment played a crucial role. Humans studied animal behavior, plant cycles, and weather patterns to make better decisions. Understanding which areas were safe to travel, which plants were edible, and where water could be found was critical. Early humans had to pay constant attention to subtle environmental changes. Their ability to observe, interpret, and act on this information increased their chances of survival. Awareness of the surroundings remains a timeless tool for enduring challenges. Mobility was another essential strategy. Populations could not remain in one location if resources disappeared or conditions became hostile. Migration required planning, knowledge of the terrain, and coordination within the group. Moving at the right time could prevent starvation and exposure to dangerous weather. Groups that could adapt quickly and relocate efficiently increased their chances of survival. Mobility taught flexibility, strategic thinking, and courage, principles that remain relevant in modern life. Communication within the group was vital. Sharing information about food sources, dangers, and environmental changes allowed humans to act collectively. Effective communication strengthened cooperation, reduced mistakes, and increased efficiency. Groups that failed to share knowledge often suffered unnecessary losses. Communication also allowed for teaching and passing down survival knowledge to the next generation. Survival was not only about immediate action, but also about ensuring future generations had the tools to endure. Fire was a critical survival strategy. It provided warmth, protection, and the ability to cook food. Fire allowed early humans to survive cold temperatures and to use food more efficiently. It also acted as a deterrent against predators. The control and use of fire represented a major advancement in human survival. It required learning, observation, and cooperation to maintain. Fire was more than a tool. It was a symbol of human adaptability and the ability to shape the environment to increase survival odds. Dietary flexibility was crucial. Humans who survived extreme conditions were often those who could eat a wide variety of foods. They could adapt their diet to available resources, consuming different plants, animals, and even insects when necessary. Being selective was not always an option. Survival required versatility. This adaptability ensured that early humans could continue even when preferred food sources were scarce. Flexibility in approach, especially under pressure, is a lesson that remains valuable for overcoming modern challenges. Shelter was another important aspect of survival. Early humans sought natural shelters, such as caves, or built simple structures from available materials. Protection from the elements reduced the risk of exposure and allowed groups to conserve energy. Shelter also provided a safe space for rest, food storage, and social interaction. Maintaining a secure base increased the chances of enduring harsh conditions. The ability to build and maintain shelter reflects foresight, planning, and the application of knowledge essential survival traits. Mental resilience and emotional control were essential strategies. Life during extreme conditions was unpredictable and often frightening. Humans faced hunger, cold, predators, and uncertainty. Those who could remain focused, calm, and determined were more likely to survive. Emotional stability allowed groups to act rationally, cooperate, and make better decisions under stress. Mental strength was as critical as physical ability. Endurance required a combination of courage, patience, and the capacity to handle fear without letting it control action. The passing of knowledge between generations was a cornerstone strategy. Skills, techniques, and survival lessons had to be shared. Younger members learned hunting strategies, plant identification, fire maintenance, and shelter construction from older experienced members. This transfer of knowledge ensured that survival strategies were preserved and refined over time. Education, mentorship, and the careful communication of experience allowed the human species to adapt continuously to challenging environments. Strategic alliances with neighboring groups occasionally played a role in survival. Early humans sometimes formed temporary alliances to share resources or protect against predators. These alliances were based on trust, mutual benefit, and careful negotiation. Such cooperation could increase access to food, provide protection, and ensure knowledge exchange. Strategic social interaction, both within and between groups, was a key factor in enduring harsh conditions and ensuring long-term survival. Early humans also learned the value of risk assessment. Every decision involved weighing potential rewards against possible dangers. Hunting a large animal could provide food for days, but might also result in injury or death. Moving to a new area could lead to abundant resources or harsh terrain. Survival depended on careful judgment, foresight, and the ability to make informed choices. The capacity to assess risk effectively remains a fundamental tool in navigating difficult situations, both in survival scenarios and in daily life. Time management was also critical. Humans needed to allocate hours for hunting, gathering, maintaining fire, building shelter, and caring for children or injured members. Wasting time could result in missed opportunities for food, exposure to danger, or exhaustion. Early humans had to prioritize tasks efficiently and act with purpose. Effective use of time increased survival odds and created routines that helped maintain physical and mental strength. Time management remains a vital principle for productivity and resilience in any challenging circumstance. Ultimately, survival strategies were interconnected. Cooperation, resource management, observation, innovation, mobility, communication, shelter, dietary flexibility, mental resilience, risk assessment, knowledge transfer, alliances, and time management all worked together. No single strategy was sufficient on its own. The most successful groups applied multiple strategies consistently. This holistic approach allowed humans to endure extreme conditions that would have overwhelmed isolated or unprepared individuals. Survival was a combination of action, skill, and adaptation. Reflecting on these strategies provides perspective. Life today may not present the same extreme conditions, but challenges still demand awareness, preparation, adaptability, and resilience. Early humans survived because they understood their environment, worked together, and acted strategically. Their endurance teaches timeless lessons: cooperation, innovation, observation, flexibility, and mental strength are essential for overcoming obstacles. These principles are as relevant now as they were nearly 1 million years ago. The survival strategies of early humans also highlight the power of purpose and intentional action. Every decision mattered, and every action contributed to the group's continued existence. Survival was not random. It was the result of deliberate, informed, and coordinated effort. Recognizing the importance of purpose and action is a lesson we can carry into our own lives. Focused effort, strategic thinking, and collaboration increase the odds of success in any challenge. The story of early humans enduring harsh conditions is ultimately a story of human potential. It shows that resilience, intelligence, skill, and cooperation can overcome extreme adversity. These strategies allowed a small population to survive and pass humanity forward to future generations. They demonstrate that survival is not just about strength, but about strategy, observation, and adaptability. Their experience serves as a blueprint for facing difficulties in any era. In conclusion, the survival strategies used by humans during extreme conditions were complex and interconnected. Cooperation, resource management, environmental observation, innovation, mobility, communication, shelter, dietary flexibility, emotional resilience, risk assessment, knowledge transfer, alliances, and time management all contributed to enduring harsh conditions. These strategies ensured that early humans could survive, adapt, and thrive despite overwhelming challenges. The lessons from these strategies remain powerful today. Survival, growth, and success depend on awareness, preparation, adaptability, cooperation, and determination. Humans endured extreme conditions by acting strategically, learning continuously, and supporting one another. Their experience reminds us that challenges can be overcome when we apply knowledge, skill, and resilience. Survival is not passive. It is the result of deliberate action guided by intelligence and courage. Migration is one of the most significant forces in human history. Around 930,000 years ago, during humanity's population bottleneck, migration patterns were not simply a choice. They were a necessity for survival. Only a small fraction of humans survived this period, and movement across landscapes determined who lived and who did not. Understanding these migration patterns reveals the resilience, adaptability, and strategic thinking that allowed humans to endure extreme conditions. Chapter 7. Learn from migration patterns during humanity's population bottleneck. Early humans faced environments that could no longer support their needs. Food scarcity, water shortages, and extreme weather made staying in one place impossible. Groups had to move to survive. Migration required knowledge of the land, the ability to predict seasonal changes, and cooperation within communities. Moving successfully meant finding new territories that offered resources, shelter, and safety. Groups that could not migrate or failed to find viable locations often perished. Migration was not simply relocation, it was survival planning executed with precision. The routes humans took were influenced by climate and resources. Rivers, coastlines, and fertile valleys often served as pathways for movement. Groups followed animals, tracked plant growth, and used environmental cues to locate areas capable of supporting life. Migration required observation and memory. Humans had to recall where resources were abundant in previous seasons and anticipate their availability in new locations. Knowledge of the landscape became a critical survival tool, shaping the success of migration and, ultimately, the survival of the species. Seasonal changes also dictated movement. Winters could make areas uninhabitable due to cold and lack of food. Summers could bring drought or heat. Groups learned to move in response to these cycles, seeking regions where water, food, and shelter were available. Migration was planned and deliberate. not random wandering. The ability to anticipate environmental shifts and respond effectively allowed small populations to endure extreme conditions over long periods. Timing and precision were key factors in successful migration. The social aspect of migration was equally important. Moving as a group demanded coordination, trust, and leadership. Individuals needed to communicate, share responsibilities, and make collective decisions. Groups that maintained cohesion were more likely to endure. Migration was not only a physical challenge, but also a test of social intelligence and cooperation. Communities that could organize, share resources, and adapt together survived, while isolated or fragmented groups struggled. The bonds formed during migration strengthened the chances of survival. Environmental hazards made migration risky. Rivers could flood, mountains could block passage, and predators threatened those who moved into unfamiliar territories. Humans had to assess danger continuously and respond with caution. Migration required courage, observation, and quick adaptation. Every step carried potential consequences. Yet those who understood the risks and planned accordingly increased their likelihood of survival. Learning to navigate hazards during migration helped humans develop problem-solving skills and situational awareness that remained critical in every aspect of survival. Migration also required careful planning and resource management. Traveling long distances without reliable sources of food and water was dangerous. Early humans had to carry what they could, use resources efficiently, and coordinate their efforts as a group. Strategic thinking determined survival. Groups that planned their movements carefully, calculated risks, and worked together had a higher chance of reaching safer areas. Poor planning or overconfidence could lead to exhaustion, hunger, and death. Survival depended on foresight and discipline. Migration patterns also reveal how humans responded to competition. Small populations had to compete with other human groups and wildlife for resources. Moving into a new area could provide relief, but it could also spark conflict. Early humans had to negotiate, avoid unnecessary confrontations, and sometimes form temporary alliances. The ability to assess social and environmental risks shaped the success of migration. Survival depended on balancing opportunity with caution and adaptability with strategy. Migration also fostered innovation. Early humans developed tools, techniques, and strategies to make long-distance travel more efficient. They learned how to carry resources, preserve food, and protect themselves against hazards. Shelter, fire, and clothing were adapted to new environments. Survival depended on innovation and the ability to adjust to changing conditions. Migration challenged humans to think creatively, problem solve, and remain flexible in the face of uncertainty. This adaptability was crucial for enduring the bottleneck. Knowledge transfer was critical during migration. Older, experienced members guided younger individuals, teaching them routes, resource locations, and safety strategies. This sharing of knowledge ensured that each migration improved the group's chances of survival. Memory, observation, and storytelling became tools for endurance. Lessons learned from one journey informed the next, creating a cycle of experience, adaptation, and improvement. Migration was as much about passing down wisdom as it was about moving across the landscape.